Today, I'm going to tell you about the 7 worst things about e-biking. Things I wish people told me before I started e-mountain biking. Okay, a little background. Francis, founder of Emtbr. I've been biking for 35 years. A lot of cross-country, single-speed, and road. But about 8-9 years ago, people introduced me to e-mountain biking, and I've been e-mountain biking ever since. And then it's been a journey. It's been a journey, you know, from very early difficult acceptance to what it is now. But there's 7 things that I've observed, and the number 7 is kind of a backbreaker, kind of a heartbreaker. So hang on for that. So the number 1 worst thing about e-biking is the entry price is too steep. Too steep. So mountain biking, you want to get into it, you want to try it out. You know, you tell them, hey, tell your brother, $1,200, $1,400. You know, get you started, see if you like it. You know, get a hardtail 29 or maybe a little plus, and get you going. E-biking, so many people want to get into it, try it. How is the entry price? $5 grand. $5 grand today. During the lockdown, it was even worse. You know, there's a multitude of reasons for it. One is you can't really do a hardtail. There's no e-bike hardtail. It just doesn't work that way because the weight is too heavy, the unsprung weight with no shock. It just gives you a beating, so no one makes a good e-bike hardtail. It's always full suspension, and to make a good full suspension costs money. Usually $3,500. You add on the price of the motor and battery, you get to $5,000 pretty quickly. And those $5,000 bikes are gone. You know, in very short supply. And so the mid price is about $6,000 to $8,000. That's a lot of money. Now you're talking a lot of money, and then the high end is well over $10,000. So very high entry price. So many more people would love to try it if only you know, if this gateway price was more approachable. The number 2 worst thing about e-mountain biking is as it gets legalized, it is difficult to enforce. You know, so there's class 1, class 2, and class 3. What's going to get legalized on trails is class 1, meaning 250 watts average output, 20 mile per hour cutoff limit, meaning no assistance over 20 miles an hour, and no throttle. So those are the basics. But you know, there's class 2 and class 3 more for commuting and the Wild Wild West. But with all these companies, the bike companies are gonna stay true to the law. You know, mountain bikes that follow class 1. But you know, the motorcycle companies, they got their own thing, and then you got all these upstarts from Asia, from Australia. You know, they try to blur the lines. They try to make a overpowered motorcycle and put fake pedals on it. You know, just because. You know, like the Suron. Sometimes we see Surons in our local trails, like a gang of them, and I'm like, oh shit, this is really happening. So it becomes a little bit of a Wild Wild West. Some self-enforcement is happening there. The number 3 worst thing about e-mountain biking is if you're an athlete, if you've been biking for a while, and you just have one e-bike or 2 e-bikes, and you give up all your mountain bikes, it is very difficult to maintain fitness. You're gonna get slower. You might gain a little weight. But what's happening is twofold. One is you have that turbo mode. It's like sugar or crack. Once you taste it, it's hard to get off it, right? But that one, it's very hard to work out. If you're on eco mode, you can work out. You can do as much watts as you want, especially if you have big hills. But on turbo, it's hard. But it is human nature goes towards that sweet stuff. The other thing is when you gain weight on an e-bike, like gain 20 pounds, there's not that much consequence. You're still having fun. You can still keep up with your buddies. So as opposed to my Fazari right here, I gained 20 pounds. I'm not getting up that hill, or people are waiting for me 20 minutes at the hilltop. And speaking of waiting, in mountain biking, it's always a race. It's always a race, whether you know it or not. All those excuses like, I've been sitting all day. My tires are heavy. You know, I've heard them all before. It's because part of mountain biking is competition racing among buddies. You know, you're checking gaps on every hilltop. You're ahead or you're behind. So interesting dynamic. And then e-bike racing too it's kind of out there. It's weird. Enduro racing at best, but it's very hard to participate and very hard to enforce, at least in the early years. So and then racing yourself, Strava records, personal records, they're not that meaningful on e-bikes for now, because it's just a wild west. You know how much power these bikes have, and what trail mode is or what eco mode is on each bike, right? I gotta add, if you are coming off the couch or coming off the bench, meaning you're coming back to mountain biking or new to mountain biking and you start e-biking, you're gonna get fit, of course. It's that high level fitness that's hard. Number 4 fact that I wish I knew starting out is e-biking is very hard on equipment, and it's gonna cost you a lot more money to keep your bike tuned. So you're happy you spent 8 grand on your bike, nice canyon here. 3 months later, your chain breaks, your chain's gone, your cassette, and then you get your cassette's gone, chain ring, your brake pads are shot, and so is your rotor. Boom, what just happened? What's happening is the e-bike is much harder on equipment, and the equipment's not designed for it. All our stuff is designed for analog bikes or traditional mountain bikes. So they have to be revised to be suitable to this task. The other thing that's happening is we're doing a lot more riding. So I used to ride twice a week. Now I ride 5 times a week. And instead of 1,500 foot climbs locally, I'll do like 5,000 feet on a Monday lunch. So a lot more altitude, a lot more downhill, harder on equipment, and I can put out a couple hundred watts of power sustained. This thing can put out 500, so that's 700 watts. That chain was never designed for 700 watts, really. But I like it because instead of taking 5 hours, I'm done in an hour and a half. So, but you know, we are in chapter 3 of a 10-part mini-series, I believe. And so there's going to be a lot of R&D, a lot of development to make these drivetrains, these brakes, suspension suitable to this task of e-mountain biking. The number 5 downside of e-mountain biking is they're kind of heavy and ugly. Ugly 5 years ago, especially. Man, I had some dogs that I had to ride, I had to test, and they produce a lot of clatter, cables, whatnot. It's to this day, a lot of bikes, they're still struggling with design because you have a huge battery that you got to put in, a motor, and all this electronics. So it's a experimental stage we're at. But these ones, you know, the S-Works, the Canyon, the Levo SL, they're pretty nice looking bikes. They don't look like huge monstrosity motorcycles. But the one that's not gone away yet is the weight. The weight traditionally is about 50 to 55 pounds, more like 55 if you're getting in on the ground floor of $5,000. And 55 pounds is not a big deal if you're climbing a fire road, you know, because you have a motor, you know, so easy, or you have so many options. But the bad thing about that is on the trail, you know, sometimes it feels like a snowplow. You're plowing through corners, you try to jump, it's not jumping, changing directions, the fun factor, it's a little bit off. That's being solved right now. You know, I'm getting my best times, my best smiles on this Levo Gen 3 S-Works. So it's definitely, the progresses have been amazing, but not everyone has that kind of technology or that money to do these things. The other thing is, the slower the bike is going, the heavier, the more you feel the weight. Meaning, when I'm in the garage, I mean, just to set this up, I'm like, dang, my stands can't even take this weight. It's tough. 55 pounds is at the limit of what you could just throw around. You want to flip the bike, lube the chain, whatever, put it on your rack. There's a gate crossing at your trail, or 2 trees fell. This is the worst, the dual tree on my single track, and you have to lift it over those 2 trees. No joke. But you get used to it. The bikes are getting better. If you are a 110-pound guy or lady, it's gonna be tough. These bikes will put more people on trails, and which is really cool. But if you live in a very congested area, East Coast, and not a lot of trails, it'll kind of put more stress on that limited resource. So a lot of my friends at the East Coast, they're not really into it. It'll take time because, you know, it just puts more people out there, and until the trails are built, it is kind of a stress on those scarce resources. And finally, the number one worst thing about e-biking is it seems to split the mountain bike community in half. The ones who are pro e-bike and the ones who are against it. There's a lot of people in the middle who are pretty neutral about it, but these two camps are at odds. And you thought every mountain biker was your brother. There's a lot of hate being spewed right now. Now, mind you, 7-8 years ago, I was the 2%er. There were like 2 of us out of 100 that liked the e-bike, that absolutely clicked. 98%, and I ran Emtbr. 98% just absolutely hated it. I pretty much had to ride in hiding. I couldn't show my face anywhere. So that's a tough one. It's an evolving issue. Most people, because mountain biking is an elite sport, most people of physical exertion, most people when they hear of e-biking or any kind of assistance are instantly against it. Before they even try it, before they know anything about it, are instantly against it. Like all my e-bike friends right now admitted to me, hey, I was against it until I tried it. So there's that battle. And then there's all these issues with e-biking as well. But really what's kind of tough about this issue is it breaks our community in half. And what if 3 of your best riding buddies are anti-e-bike, and they spew out insults and profanities to other e-bikers, and just not to you. It's hard to hang out with them. I thought we were a unified community that shared a common passion, but really we're not. We're just like the rest of humanity. There's a lot of tribalism, a lot of my way or the highway situation. That's a tough one, and I think it's something we're going to wrestle with. I'm here in Santa Cruz area, and it's accepted now. It's 50-60% are e-biking or really tolerant of it. But this battle is going to be fought region by region. I heard Bend, Oregon is tough, Colorado stuff. Anywhere where there's a cross-country stronghold, they're going to spew the insults and the hate and whatnot. But meanwhile, if you're an e-biker, just be confident in what you're doing. Have thick skin. Most of the times, a lot of these people are saying insults in jest anyway. You go, hey, cheater, and I'm like, yeah, cheating life, bro. And it turns into a good conversation. 90% of these incidents I'm able to turn into a positive conversation. And people are like, man, I hate e-bikes, but you're not bad, dude. I guess you guys are not all jerks. So I'm like, nah, say likewise. So anyway, those are the 7 deadly sins of e-biking, an unfortunate reality of what we live in. Click on this other video. I'm going to tell you about the 7 best things about e-biking. Wait till you hear this. It's pretty awesome.